Well, hello and welcome to More to the Story with Molly White. I'm so glad you joined me again today. We have a great show today, a powerful testimony, and we hope that you will stay tuned and that you would share this with all of your friends. And now I'd like to introduce my awesome, wonderful co host who hasn't been with me for several weeks. So, welcome back, Mary Browning.
Thank you, Molly. It's so good to be on this program again. I've missed being part of the show with you.
Well,
Thank you
I
for
have missed
having
you, but
me.
I know you've been doing the Lord's work, and we're going to be talking about that on our next recording. So I hope everybody stays tuned in. But all right, we have a very special guest with us today. This is the first time I've met her, and her name is Deborah Zerafa. Deborah is here to share her personal experience with abortion, how it impacted her life, and her healing experience. So, welcome, Deborah. We look forward to hearing your story.
Thank you so much. What a privilege.
So, Molly, I'm excited about today. And as you know, we do have a woman that's going to give her account of having an abortion. So, we want to make sure that we're letting our listeners know that it's a possibility that something you hear today could cause you to have an emotional reaction. And that may be something that you will want to delve into. We consider that an invitation to healing. And we also, it could be a triggering point. So, we invite you to call the H3 helpline or to log on to the justicefoundation.org, operationoutcry.org, and find healing resources there for you. Thank you.
Well, just like me and Mary, our abortions have taken place a long time ago, but the experience is still real. The experience still affected our life, and it continues to do so. Even though we're walking in healing, wholeness, restoration, it still has a long lasting effect. So, Deborah, can you just take us back to that time? I'm sure you were a young woman when you got pregnant, and then kind of take us from that point.
Yes, I was a young woman just out of high school. Just moved into an apartment, found myself pregnant, and my boyfriend was, no, we're not getting married and we don't need a baby. So he talked me into going to see someone. Went to Planned Parenthood in 1973. Of course, I remember the date exactly. And I was extremely reluctant because I was very happy to be pregnant and I had loved this boy and thought we would get married because we'd been together for quite a few years. And when I sat down with he didn't come into the room. He wasn't allowed in. There were three women. And I was basically, and I don't want to say, but I was surrounded by these women and there were statements made. And being a young person, they were being made like it's just a blob of cells. You're going to ruin your life. You won't go to college. This will be a secret. Nobody will ever find out about it. And you really need to do it right now because I was about 10 weeks along and we really want you to get it done now so you won't have any complications and etc. So I recall, a lot of that was such a fog for me because I don't think obviously I was in my right mind, but I was overwhelmed with the changing of my body and the changing of my life and all of that, that I believe I went home that night and they had scheduled it already. So it was either later that day, which my mind tells me it was, maybe that's a rationalization on my part, but it was either later that day or the following morning. And I inwardly fought it a little bit, like this, but then I remembered, it's just a blob and just nobody will find out. My parents are the pillars of the church. And so I went, and the instant my eyes opened after the abortion, the instant I knew that I had made a horrible mistake and I couldn't undo it. So I've carried that, but fortunately I've had incredible people along the way that have helped me, especially, of course, the stigma of it was something I didn't talk about for years and years until it became relevant when I had children and that I wanted to have a voice against it. And so but the abortion itself was just quick. Do it, get it done, finito, and you don't have to worry. And that's where my mind went.
Yes, and I wanted to go back and elaborate on a couple things, and I like to kind of expose the wicked deeds of the abortion industry when I hear things in your testimony or our testimonies. Is number one, they want to rush you into a decision. They want to get you while you're vulnerable and while you're questioning or you're unsure, and they want to get you in there as quickly as possible because if not, they're going to lose their money. Because once you have time to think and process and talk to other people, you're more than likely going to change your mind, from my perspective, anyway. How about you, Mary?
Yes, I absolutely agree. Just try to get a quick decision. A
And
lot of pressure.
another thing they do is they don't want your boyfriend, husband, or parents to go back in the counseling room with you. And why is that? They don't want to risk the chance of the parents saying no, or asking too many questions, or changing your mind, or no, I don't think this was good for her. So they don't want any kind of outside influence that would risk a young woman from changing her mind in that so-called counseling room. And then putting you in the room with lots of other people is also kind of peer pressure. It's probably hard to get up and walk out
I wouldn't have even have
when
thought of walking out. I mean, it was just, and they have your undivided attention. They are talking about the most personal thing that you have
Yes.
that is actually growing inside of you and multiplying and becoming a child. And they're trying to tell you that that's not what is occurring with you. And I was young and, like you said, vulnerable. And I think a lot of us women who have done this have done it as a quick decision without much forethought or beyond, like, what is this child gonna do for my life? I had an interesting conversation at Bible study yesterday. I was telling them about the podcast, so I'm gonna have a great number of people that at our Bible study. And one of the gals, after we discussed it for a short time, she said, "Well, I thought Planned Parenthood helped you plan for parenthood." And the rest of us in the room went, no. She says, "Well, they don't do abortions, do they?" I said, "Well, I'm not sure if they do the abortions, but they certainly facilitate them. They set them up and they encourage you to. This is a business. When you go into a business, what are they going to do? They're going to sell you whatever it is they're selling."
Yes.
So it was really, I mean, this gal was in her 60s, and I was just amazed that she says, "I had no idea. I had no idea." So isn't that
wow.
amazing? So I said,
It is amazing, because as
Yes.
public as it
yes,
is, and, it's been going on for, what, 50 something
yeah, 50,
years,
50, 53
that
years.
someone would not, yeah, that would not know that.
So I thought,
Well,
Well, I sometimes refer to them as planned unparenthood
right, and I have a
because
friend
they
who refers to them as planned barrenhood, because they're not there to help you get pregnant. They're not there to do OB-GYN care if you are pregnant. They're there to keep you from maintaining a pregnancy.
and she thought, yeah, and as a lot of other people do, is they think that they are helping women with contraceptive devices and all of that, and they're doing this great work for humanity by providing condoms and, I mean, they believe they even do the after pregnancy pill and all of that stuff. So
morning
the morning,
after is the same pill as the abortion pill.
yeah,
Yes.
Right, right.
and then
Yeah, they're and if their services were working, we wouldn't have such high abortion rates, correct?
yeah.
But let's get back to your story. So, you did have someone you could confide to after your abortion?
I not initially, no. It was probably around, uh, 10 or 12 years later, and I
Okay.
met a couple in my state who did reconciliation counseling for marriages and abortion and just life issues, and they were tremendous. He was an attorney, and I was introduced because I was in the profession, and we just clicked, and we did a lot of things at their house and became friends with my husband and I, and they could see the deep pain and grief that I had gone through, and they just said, "We'd really like to just meet with you on a personal level and just begin to kind of unravel your thoughts and unravel, what occurred actually." And that process was really the catalyst for the forgiveness because I knew that God had forgiven me. I knew that my parents forgave me and my children, but I couldn't forgive me. And That was where that was the sticking point because I said, "How, God, could you even look on me?" You know? I just beat myself up continually, constantly. So the work with them was just really the forgiveness, and I really felt that the Holy Spirit really released me from that pain, and that was the start of being able to live a life that didn't just crush me with.
Right, that you weren't self-loathing and being self-destructive because of unforgiveness, and that's something that we feel is a very important, Mary and I, is that
Yes.
there's 3 steps that are critical in abortion recovery, and there's a lot of steps in between, but the 3 major ones would be being forgiven by God, repenting and asking for forgiveness, and then forgiving all of those who were involved with that decision or prior to that decision, the pregnancy and all of those things, and then forgiving ourselves. And we're not forgiving ourselves a sin, we're forgiving ourselves for violating our own humanity, our own design. God created us women to give forth life and men to produce life, So it's very, very important. And those 3 things will really set you free,
And
really
that's
set you
virtually
free.
what occurred. So I was really fortunate that
Mm.
these people came into my life at a real critical time. My children were young and and I was trying to be an example to them. And as life unfolded, the topic would come up from time to time. And I just had to be blunt and be perfectly honest with them that you have a sibling and
Mm.
mama made a bad decision. And I think that that carried, of course, my daughter. She got pregnant at 17, had my grandson, and he is the love of our lives. I mean, he's just, you just can't say enough about a human being that flourishes within the confines of a family. And it's not just the immediate family, it's the cousins and the nieces and nephews and the aunts and uncles and the grandparents and the great grandparents. And it's a
Mhm.
beautiful thing when she could have done the same thing. And because of me disclosing that to her, that would never even enter her mind or her vocabulary. It just was so foreign that she would even consider something like that. So, and then just recently, well, not recently, I have a 3.5-year-old great-granddaughter, and my grandson and his girlfriend found themselves pregnant at a very young age. And well, they were in their early 20s, and they have my great-granddaughter now, and it's you just see this family just living and working together and doing things that if there was no children, if there was no my grandson or our family was deprived of a child of
That
God,
blessing.
a blessing that it blesses me more than probably, I mean, he doesn't know what a blessing he is, but I mean, he does, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, we can see it in your eyes, can't we, Mary?
Yes, yes, and I was just thinking that because you had the courage or you answered the nudge of the Holy Spirit to make sure you spoke to your daughter, that you have a legacy then of life that's running through your family, even though there's part of your family tree that's been cut off. We've talked about that before, where we didn't just lose the child that was aborted, but we lost the children they would have had and the other children that would have come from them. So there's a whole generational line. So I love that you have a legacy of life in your family, Deb, because you had the courage to just sort of debunk the lie and let your daughter know what the experience was like for you. If there is a listener out there that has not thought about talking to their child, is there something you would say? Or how did you sort of bridge that gap or come to that place where you spoke to yours?
well, there was a catalyst about that. My parents had a 25th wedding anniversary. And my sister and I were making an item for the years that they were married in the 25 years. And I had the early year. And I started going, wait a minute. Found out my parents had to get married. Well, back there, it was the get married thing. I was like, had my mother and that generation, they didn't, you didn't even tell them when you talk about anything, sickness or anything. And so, had I known she was the same age as I was when she got pregnant with my brother. And I just thought after that, oh my goodness, if she'd had told me, which I understand why she didn't, but I would have had that child. And I'm not saying that it's her fault or anything like that, but therein lies the secretive parts of our lives that we don't want to share because we don't want somebody to think we're less than or not worthy enough or not Christian enough or all of those things. And my mother was sorry after that, that she didn't share. And see, then that opens up the box of being able to have conversations and discussions about all of the things that affect our lives. So that was a really interesting perspective later on after the fact. So,
And then you found it important to tell your children. And it is important to break that generational curse, really. I want to go back for a minute, and you were talking about how your grandchildren and your great grandchild are such a blessing to your family, and not just to the grandparents and the parents, but to the siblings and to the cousins and to the aunts and uncles. And that blessing just spreads out through this whole family tree. But the opposite is very true too. When you have an abortion, it hurts everyone involved in that family because
yes.
they're deprived of that relationship with that child. And it does show that every one woman's abortion can affect an average of 45 other family members
Wow.
because you have to talk into the grandparents on both sides, the aunts and uncles on both sides, the cousins on both sides, the siblings on both sides. And so it's just a big, huge rippling effect. And that's why it's so important to tell our children. I'm going to have a guest on in the future, Dr. Marie Ney, who's going to be talking about abortion survivor syndrome. And there's 10 types of that. In their research, children in a family know that there's something not right. A family of, for example, of an abortion. The mothers have had an abortion of the father. And you keep it a secret, but there's no such thing as a secret because you have anniversary syndrome or there's something, you're guilty or there's something not quite right. They may not be able to put their finger on it. But when we're able to tell them, our children, about our abortions, then things start clicking for them. Now we know why. Now this whole relationship, this whole thing that I've been witnessing is starting to make sense. But it helps them also to be able to grieve that loss and to recognize that they might not be the oldest child in the family or they're missing a younger sibling. But it also uh, shows them the importance of healing through a trauma, learning from a mistake, sharing that. And when they see the parent go through healing and recovery and restoration, then the children are encouraged and strengthened to be able to do that when they face their own
I
challenges.
believe that to
That
be totally true, absolutely. Because if we don't share what we have gone through or what we have done in our lives, then not only like we just don't we do deprive our family. What happens is I think that your relationship with your children seems to be a little distant. Like when you're honest and when you're open and you have difficult conversations, it actually brings you closer. And then they go home and they can mull it over and they can figure out, well,
Yes.
and then they can forgive you too, and
Yes.
forgive you for, the whole scenario. I mean, and I really do believe that talking about it is imperative because even in the circle of friends that you have, because there's always going to be pro-choice people and there's always going to be pro-life people. And then to engage with your own story certainly holds a lot of water, much more than somebody who has not done it or experienced it. And we need to share our stories so that people understand that the ramifications are lifelong.
Yes, man,
Yes.
beautiful.
I'm wondering, Deb, because you recently were part of an amicus brief that was filed in the Minnesota case, where we looked at Minnesota, correct?
Michigan.
Or was it Michigan? It was Michigan. I'm
That's okay.
sorry. We've done a number of different things. Okay. And Michigan had voted to put abortion in the Constitution, and there was a trial level where the trial judge said there was no longer a requirement to provide informed consent to the women coming. So when you were talking about them telling you this is tissue, I was just thinking how profound that was. And what would you want a woman to know if they were considering abortion today? What would you think they should know?
Well, they should know that it's taking a life, and that life that you take is going to affect your life in absolute so many ways. I was going to say profound, but it's going to affect your life individually as a human being, as a woman. And once you become a mother, you understand really, really hits you hard of what you do. I don't believe adults grow up until they have children, until they understand unconditional love, until they actually are in the role of a nurturing parent. Abortion is way before all of that. And so you cut those emotional feelings or whatever that we go through as we progress in life. And so we cut out that emotional connection with a child that is forever, changes us. However, when we go later on, and in my case, I had 3 other children, and it's, I mean, it's hard to explain it, but it's just, it just affects everything, I think. And so I would tell somebody, listen to my story. You know, I'm still relevant at my age, decades later, and it's still at the forefront of my mind that I deprived myself alone of a beautiful child. And it has, and I would do anything to undo it, because I've seen, in my case, 2 people in my family that chose life, and the incredible, I don't want to keep saying blessings, but the incredible people that they are, and that I get to watch and enjoy and grow and be a part of their life.
Love on.
And just, yeah, totally love on. And then I cut one short. I mean, I snuffed one out. And I would just say that, you know, really, really get alone, get in a quiet spot. Bow your head. I don't care if you're Christian or not, but just bow your head and just think about what you are about to do. And you might change, I mean, you know, and then God works in mysterious ways, and he changes the minds and hearts of people all the time. And
He
so I
does.
would just really encourage reflections. Reflect on what could be, rather than I'm going to be embarrassed, or I'm going to embarrass somebody else, or I'm, you know, and it in this day and age, it just, it's not, there's not that, oh, you're pregnant. Nobody cares anymore. Just have the baby.
Right. Right.
I'll take it. I love
Absolutely.
children.
Yeah. Yes, me too. And it's not a negative stigmatism like it used to be, pregnant outside of marriage. It's better to be
Mhm.
pregnant within marriage, don't get me wrong,
I agree.
but it's not the end of the world. And earlier, you, um, we had made the comment, um, that you were told that a baby could ruin your life. And what's such a lie? Such a lie.
It is.
Babies never ruin our lives. They're the most precious things and the biggest blessing. A mother cannot explain to a woman who's not a mother yet the love that you have for that child. It's unexplainable. You have to experience it. And when you don't experience it because you chose abortion, which we've done,
Yes.
we're robbing ourselves of an incredible love and the honor and joy to watch another human being grow and develop and bring that love back into our lives and such joy. And so don't believe the lie that babies ruin your lives. I know, and I counseled with a 13-year-old girl. Her parents were pastors of a church, and we counseled them and counseled them. She chose life, and it ended up to be the biggest blessing in this family, the biggest blessing in this church. The daughter went and finished high school. She's got a college degree, and she's very successful as a 13-year-old mother.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So don't believe the lies. And another thing, don't make a decision based on fear. Fear is an emotion that will go away once you start doing what Deborah said, reflect. Think, research, get online, look at fetal development, look at all of the risks involved with the abortion, how it's traumatized millions of women's lives and men's lives and families' lives, and look at all the options. There's always help for you. If you're pregnant and you feel alone, you feel unsupported, no, you're not alone. You're not unsupported. There's groups like ours, and there's pregnancy resource centers all over the nation
Yes.
just there for you. And then another reason, there was several reasons that you shouldn't choose. Okay, fear, reflect, and get educated. And don't let anyone pressure you. This is your body. This is your baby. This is your life. And it's really illegal, right, Mary, to pressure a woman to having an abortion
Yes, it is. Forced abortion is illegal in each state. Yes.
and coerced and
And
pressured, all of
coerced.
those things. and don't do it to please someone else
Exactly.
because it's you. It's your life it's going to impact.
You mentioned the court case, and I don't really want to go off on a rabbit trail, but in the amicus brief, what astounds me is that the political climate of many of the states, and I don't need to tell you blue, red, or whatever, that the informed consent to me is paramount to choosing life or abortion, and it's paramount to the individual's decision. And without
Yes.
it, we have we have basically hidden the truth. We have hidden the truth,
Yes.
and we don't want them to know that this is a viable human being, that just hurry up and get rid of it. And so to me, I think those that try to take that language out, I mean, to me, why would you do that? To me, it's almost evil to keep education about a child away from a mother who finds herself pregnant, unplanned pregnancy, and that's the answer? I mean, that's
Yeah.
what they're telling us. That's the answer? No,
Yeah.
Yes.
that's not the
I heard someone recently describe the kind of sort of shepherding that happens along the pathway into abortion is more like coaching to abortion by withholding that full information rather than saying this is a controversial topic. Some people consider it unethical and immoral because they believe this is a child. Other people don't look at it that way. And this is the stage of development currently in growing in your womb, so that when the woman decides, she actually really knows what it is she is deciding. So you make a really good point, Deborah.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. It's the cultural narrative that this is my body by choice and it's good. It's a good thing for you to choose abortion when those of us that are on the other side of it know the aftermath. But I'm thankful for places such as this podcast and Molly's tenacious energy around making sure others know. And hopefully we can get to people before they make a decision and let them know there's more to this story than you've been told.
That's right. Amen. Thank you, Mary. And I'm going to close with this because I was thinking about this very topic this morning after I had a discussion with Mary earlier. You can't make a choice if you don't have all the information.
That's right.
And when you're deprived of important information, then it is not a choice. It is manipulation. It is deception. It is coercion.
Yes.
It is seduction
Yes.
into doing what someone else wants you to do,
Right.
But when you're fully informed about choices, any kind of choices, then you can make a choice, an educated choice. But without all the information that you need, it's no longer choice.
Well,
Right.
isn't it interesting? I mean, so when they go to what are the clinics called? The life clinics or whatever?
Pregnancy resource
Yes.
centers.
Well, the pregnancy resource centers. I mean, they don't not discuss abortion. They give you both sides of the coin so that you get
Yes.
to see both sides. But when you go to Planned Parenthood,
Yes.
they deprive you of the other side of the coin. And so you are basically, in a darkened area where you don't even learn anything about that child. And so to me, yeah, that's deceptive. I mean, that's totally
It's deceptive
Yes.
and should be illegal.
should be.
Deceptive. I agree.
I mean,
And should be illegal.
so I mean that therein lies maybe the laws that say, the informed consent it serves everybody's best interests.
Yes.
Except for the abortion industry.
Exactly. So
Yes.
Except
That's
for the
right.
abortion industry. Because they
Good
know the more
point.
information a woman has, the more support she has, the more encouragement she has, the more resources she has, she's not going to have an abortion.
well, let's put them out of business.
That's what we're trying to do with this podcast. We're trying to educate people on the deceptive, destructive, and illicit practices of the abortion
Yes.
industry and how it impacts our lives and women's and men's lives all over the world. And it's not just Planned Parenthood, but they are the mothership of the abortion industry.
Yes.
But
Yes.
all abortion providers practice the same thing.
Yes.
Less information, the quicker we can get her in there, and get that abortion, the better off
Well,
we
even the
are.
schools,
But they do not care about the
I
woman
think
at all.
the schools have a huge responsibility in facilitating abortions, and I think it's disgraceful that a young girl can go to the counselor and they get an order from a judge, never informing the parents that their child under the age of 18 is being whisked off to have an abortion and is returned at the school day without their knowledge. I mean, that to
And
me,
traumatized and
that
traumatized
should be
and not knowing what happened to my daughter. Why is she different? Yesterday she went to school all happy and blah, 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 and now she's depressed and sad and,
it's criminal.
staying in her room or getting involved
Is
in drugs
criminal.
and alcohol and just, why is my daughter falling apart? What's going on with her? So yeah, it's very,
Well,
very
to
destructive.
that point, we can't get young people can't get their ears pierced. They can't take an aspirin at
That's right.
school. They can't buy a pack of cigarettes. There are a number of things that young people can't drive, can't vote. But under the current regime, there's a lot of places, just as you mentioned, where they'll go to school and the school counselor will railroad them through the process of getting an abortion. And it's just I don't think the public is fully aware of how insidious it's gotten.
And this I know has been going on since the 80s. So there have been a lot of secretive trips to an abortion clinic without parents, even to probably this day, knowing that
Mhm.
their child had an abortion. And it would be really nice to find people
Yes.
like that to come and talk about it.
Mhm.
Thank you, Deborah, for coming on. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation and just keep on sharing and praise God, for your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren. Such a blessing. And thank you, Mary. And I'm going to close with this. The abortion industry was always based on lies and deception. Even the legalization of Roe v. Wade. Everything was based on lies and deception so that this insidious, is that the right word, Mary?
It is.
Industry could then profit billions of dollars by providing abortions. I was going to say healthcare, but that's a lie too. By providing abortion services, and the abortion industry thrives to seduce young people into sexual immorality, and then they make billions of dollars selling them birth control, contraceptives, and abortions. It's just an evil
It's
industry. I don't have any more time, but thank you so much for coming
it
on, Deborah. God bless you. Thank you, Mary. And thank you all for tuning in to More to the Story of Molly White. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. God bless. Bye bye.